Hello and welcome to Business Conversations. My name is John Anderson, and with me today is Marsden Smith, a consulting controller and CFO, and we're going to be talking today about surprises and how to celebrate those surprises and how to prepare for them. So Marsden, thank you so much for joining me today in Business Conversations, and refresh with our audience and tell me a little bit about your background.
I'm a bean counter by trade. I'm a controller, CFO. Been a cost account controller for over 30 years, and I learned early on in my career, probably from when I was in the Peace Corps, to be more interested in the outcome than the process. And then when I came to the United States, came back to go to work in the paper industry and several other industries I've been involved in. Most people are interested in the process, not necessarily the outcome. So to me, the biggest thing about my career is I always try to be involved in getting numbers that help the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's so important for small business owners.
And especially for small business owners, because they don't want to hear about processes, they want to hear about what the answer is.
Results.
Yeah,
and achieving their goals.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking at recently, and you were remarking to me how a recent event took place. Tell me about what happened.
Yeah, we're talking about surprises, and you and I were talking on the phone probably Monday of this week,
mm-hmm.
and then it was funny. I got an email on Tuesday from the owner of the company I've been doing consulting for, and his wife was on the East Coast in New Jersey visiting their grown daughter, and she came down with a brain tumor because she had lost. I mean, she wasn't functioning correctly in her brain, the way she was acting and everything.
Wow.
So the owner had to fly back east, but fortunately, in this case, he'd already, coincidentally, 2 and 3 years ago, had identified a good succession plan and chosen the people and promoted them in positions that his absence wouldn't be felt and his interruption wouldn't be a distraction to the business doing what they needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's what happens. I mean, there's always surprises that happen in our business life, and things come up, and that's what we're talking about. And there are accidents or surprises out of nowhere that all of a sudden everything's going along fine, and then boom, something happens, and all of our world is just turned upside down. And an illness, or an accident of either the owner or his partner or their children or someone close in their lives. And sometimes it's of one of the managers, one of the key people in the business. But something can just happen out of nowhere. An auto accident, work-related or pleasure, having fun, out camping, hiking, fall down, and all of a sudden the owner or one of the key people is just like out of the picture.
Right.
And so many small businesses are really in some real jeopardy and danger around that, and this is a perfect example. It wasn't the owner, it was the owner's daughter.
Well, the owner's wife.
Oh, the owner's wife. But he had to go, he had to leave.
He had to leave. And his wife be attending the surgery, and then when he flies her back here to OHSU, he has to be with her again, and there's a huge distraction.
Yeah.
But everybody in the organization knows their role, knows what to do, and so they're going to pick up the pieces and move on. In fact, like I say, the owner had already named a general manager like a number of months ago, mm-hmm. and put him in the position, and so everybody really cares about the owner, cares what's going on, but they know what they have to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's one of the fundamental circumstances that can take place, and that is something out of the blue that completely changes the nature of the circumstance. And if the owner is a key ingredient in the success of the business and the daily operations, then that can have a massive effect.
Oh, yes.
And then a second one is where there's some gradual change that's taking place. and it can be within the owner's life, and it can be, you know, within the business, but that this is some slow, gradual change. And it can be, again, it can be the result of an accident or an illness. If all of a sudden someone, either the owner or a key person, comes down with cancer, or comes down with some kind of progressive illness, then they know that there's something coming. They can look ahead, but something has to be done in the next 3 to 6 to 12 months, because they know they're going to have to make a change. But now their whole life is colored by this changing situation. And it can also be an aging parent of the owner or the owner's wife, where all of a sudden they know that it's okay now, but in 3 to 6 months we're going to need to be doing something different here. Right? You've got to go across the country, take care of an aging parent and the changing circumstances. And it can also be industry related. A new competitor. You get word that that a big box that's going to be a direct competitor is moving in to your local territory, right, your local area, and they're not moved in yet, but you know that they're coming. Right. You know, you're in the bookstore business, and there's a Barnes and Noble that announces plans. You know, so that's one of the longer term. And then the third situation is, the owner says, I'm 45. Gee, let's see, 20 years ago I was 25. Yeah. And 20 years from now, I'm going to be 65. And, it's 20 years. I got 20 years to prepare. But do I want to wait? Do I want to work in this business another 20 years? Is this what I want to be doing? What do I really want to do? What am I going to do next? So these are the three fundamental ingredients that we work with. Okay, tell me something about how what's the kind of situations, because you were telling me earlier you've been working with some companies that have prepared their business for sale. Tell me a little bit about your personal experiences.
Well, I just say, I want to add, part of it is like most of us have life insurance. I have life insurance, and you probably do too.
Right.
Well, a good business plan, a good succession plan is just like the life insurance. I mean, if we take the conscious decision to get a life insurance policy, we're playing the odds that something might happen to us. Well, same thing. All these things you're talking about can really upset the business performance. Mm-hmm. And by having a good plan, it's like having another life insurance policy. Mm-hmm. But my personal plans, I do know that, like in one case didn't tell you about this, but my father had a farm. I used to be a farmer early on, and my mother had cancer, and she died when she was younger than I am now. And that's a perfect case of it completely distracted him from what he was doing. The farm would have gone under, but my brother was there, I was there, and so we were able to
fill in.
Yeah, fill in and
carry the weight,
and keep not lose sight of what we were trying to do, and keep it going. The other, I do know that in one case, one guy, it was like where the company was sold. It was like he hit the lottery. I mean, he was sitting there and he was thinking about closing out his business, but he had a very good organization. He had a sales organization. He had good people. But just out of the sky, out of nowhere, somebody called him and offered him a whole bunch of money for his business. Wow. And so he took the money and he went out and bought 15,000 acres in Eastern Oregon. He's got the largest ranch in Oregon now, I believe. But this is one case where it was like winning a lottery. He was just sitting there and they called him, they approached him. He didn't have a clue how to get rid of it. He just knew he wanted to somehow sell his business. But the smaller business people need to have a specific plan to gracefully get out of their business and not have it killed, and leave a decent legacy for themselves and their family.
Yeah, and this is really speaking to the issue that there's many, many small businesses that the owner intends to sell the business. For years and years, they grow, they nurture the business, they have a good lifestyle, you know, but they never really pay attention to the important, that they're not going to live forever.
That's right.
Or that they're not going to want to do this forever.
Right.
And that at some point, you know, because many times, you know, an owner just gets to a point where they just get fed up. And, you know, one thing happens, two, three things, and all of a sudden they go from enthusiasm to, this isn't going to work, I'm done.
Sure.
And instead of them being able to prepare it and market it and sell it and transfer it and collect their full value, they end up just putting up a sign, going out of business, liquidating it, and they get pennies on the dollar.
Right? Because that's one thing that I myself included. I don't, you know, when you're in business, you need to look at how much you want to take out of the business, not necessarily how much you're going to take out of the business when it's running, but when you liquidate it, when you sell it, you want a couple dollars for a life effort, let's say.
Yeah, 30 years, 20 years.
So like I said, just like good life insurance, you need to have a good plan and to sell the assets and get the heck out of it and have it an ongoing concern.
So we could characterize that one of the things is where a business owner doesn't prepare. They're running their business, they're making money, but they're not, you know, they're in the role of the technician. They're not in the role of the stockholder who's looking at the business as an investment. They're looking at the business as it's their passion. They love to get up, they love to go in, they love to do this job, whatever it is, and then either they're subject to a sudden accident or illness, they're subject to something happening over a period of months, that the business all drops in value and then goes away for some reason, you know, either illness or market circumstances or product circumstances. And then the third is just the natural aging and maturation of a business and the owners in it. So an alternative is to do planning.
Is to do planning, and part of it is the style of the management, and I guess that is a function of how big it is, but the style, in fact I told you about this, the red-faced management style, where the owner just walks around and gets red in the face and screams and yells at people and things happen. But that again is poor planning, because when that individual, something happens to him, who knows how to get up and scream and yell at the right times. So you have to set up the systems. This is where I tend to be results oriented, but I do have to be process oriented once in a while. You have to set up the systems, and people have to have the discipline to do their job in a way that when you don't have somebody yelling at you, they're going to get the job done.
So how I address that with clients is I talk with them about written job descriptions.
Yeah.
And then the duties that are associated with those job descriptions, and then from there we start looking at the procedures and the methods of person A does this and this and this, and he hands the work to person B, and then person B does this and this and this, and then they hand it to person C, and then it's delivered to the client, whether it's whether it's a nursery business, or whether it's a restaurant business, or whether it's a manufacturing or dry cleaners, all businesses, they have their business system where they increase the value. They add value, and then it's like, how much does it cost to add that value? Right. By writing out the steps and looking at them and putting it in words and sentences that make sense logically, that just by the very fact of doing that, you're able to begin to see holes, and you're able to see ways that this can be streamlined and improved, and duplications can be removed. And in your background, working with manufacturing organizations, and I think you had been telling me about food processing and nursery business and different businesses. So tell me a little bit about, have you had some background? What's your experience around the structuring of an organization's procedures, either from the employee perspective or from the process perspective, the final output, the client satisfaction? Tell me about that.
Well, the employees are not dumb. They're not islands. They know what's going on. And so if they perceive that the management is not committed to writing up job descriptions, let's say, or not committed to the culture that they're saying they want to establish, they're going to sense this and things aren't going to happen. So it has to be a manager that truly cares about the people in their organization. And like I keep bringing up this nursery business that I'm most recently involved with, but I have never been around such a pleasant working atmosphere. This guy does not he's not there writing down what time people come or writing down what time people go home from work. He just is out there just sincerely interested he was sincerely interested in what they were doing and how they did it, and providing resources to do that. So he has created such a culture. I've never been around such a wonderful culture. People don't have to be asked to stay late at night. They just know they just know they have to get the job done. So there's no questions. If they have to go to the doctor's appointment, if they have something to do with the kids, they go. But then again, they do that because they know they have the flexibility to get out, to do things, but they care to follow through with their job. And so that, it's a tough thing for a lot of entrepreneurs to see that, but they need to really be personable people and caring people and care for the people that work for them, or be perceived as that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, the culture of a business is a very delicate. It's like magic, the kind of culture and the kind of mood that exists, and whether when the employees come in, they're happy to go to work, and when the customers come in, they see that everyone is enjoying what they're doing, and it just radiates. The attitude of the employees radiates to the clients, and it all starts with leadership.
Right, and it's all part of, to me, that's all part of the whole spectrum. I mean, starting the business, activating it, making it work, and then having a succession plan. It's all part of the same. To me, there's no difference.
Right. Yeah, and this is part of the solution that we help people with, and that is to look at the exit plan in general. Is that okay? How old are you? When would you like to retire? What are you going to do after this business? When would you like to step from this business into either some new venture or new activity, volunteer work? Something that's next for the owner. And then then we go and we look at once we get an idea of that time frame, then what would happen in the event that there was a sudden emergency or all of a sudden something that had to be prepared for. So we establish and we make a plan for the emergency, the immediate emergency and the long-term emergency, while we're building the long-term plan and getting that written out. And then in the process of that, we then look at, who would succeed you?
Sure.
And both in terms of operations and in terms of ownership. So really the next step in exit planning is then looking at succession planning, and part of succession planning, of course, is looking at the training, the recruiting, the training, the employee development, and then the progression of promotion.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to this example of the fellow who recently hired the general manager. You were telling me that this general manager had formerly worked for the company for a number of years, and he was the sales manager, but the owner had identified him and sometime in the past and said, what was it, you're going to become the next general manager. And so this was clearly identified, and they work towards this and him going from being the sales manager to being a general manager. And how long a period of time would you expect that that took place from, how long had he worked? Do you know anything in general?
I would get about 5 years. And then probably 3 years ago, he was identified as, he was going to be the general manager. He had the potential. And then the operations manager was identified as soon as the gentleman moved from the sales manager up to general manager, the operations manager was going to be promoted to the sales manager. So there was 3 or 4 people that knew what was going to happen.
So it was that's one of the key things in succession planning is really it's looking at all your key people and all both the individuals and the positions.
Right.
Because it's really important, I found, to really keep them separate in some ways. That this is the position of general manager. This is the position of sales manager. And then these are the qualifications. This is the duties, and these are the qualifications. This is what it would take for someone to be a successful sales manager or a successful operations manager. Because some things are similar, but then there's things that a sales manager needs to know how to do that are a little different than an operations manager.
Oh, yes.
And vice versa.
Definitely.
So when you do written work like this, have you done much of that written work? You've done some of that? Terms of the identifying in terms of, I know you're a financial guy, so, some financial guys, it's just all numbers. But I've sensed that your background goes a little broader than that.
Yes, I've always worked collaboratively with the human resources people and knowing that. And so I'm a firm believer in having job descriptions and having desk manuals, but then again, you have to give the individual people that write them the flexibility. Okay, this is what I want included, but they can structure it the way they want it. And then when something happens to those individuals, somebody else can walk in and read the book and know what has to be done.
Yeah.
And because because the biggest thing, and you alluded to this, John, saying that you don't want to make it dependent on an individual's personality to get the job done. The job has a title and has a function, and that's it. And if he's named Jeremy, so what?
Right, because maybe Frank.
Yeah.
In 2 months or 2 years, it's got to be identified.
Right. Yeah. The function has to be identified, and if the individual has a personality to do it, then you move them into that spot. But you have to be a good judge of character and move the people. That's another tough thing for entrepreneurs to judge and know who can fill what jobs.
Right. Yeah. So part and parcel of succession and the recruiting and the identification of the skills of employees, and then the development and the training and the investment, because a company invests in their employees, in the training and the time they spend, and some people, and I would agree, consider that a company's most valuable asset is its employees. What do you think about that?
I've heard that, and everybody says that, and they play lip service to it, but it's true. But you have to go beyond the lip service, because the most important thing is the employees, but you got to make sure that you know their name, you talk to them, you look at them in the eye, you know about their family, you know that you're sincerely interested in what they're doing. You can't just say that their employees are number one asset and then go turn your back and walk away.
Right. You're going to go get some new Mercedes.
Yeah.
And the employees are struggling to make rent payments and buy groceries for their children. Yeah.
And the owners can take out the money they want to take out, but they have to be careful when they do that. They don't want to be snubbing their nose at people. They want to have people that are really dedicated to doing their job. And it's not just, the smaller the company, probably the more difficult it is to do. And as you grow in size, you get professionals to work for you, and it's probably easier to do.
Yeah. Risk is reduced with greater size, because when you have more employees, it's a tricky game.
Yes, it is.
Because when you have more employees, then it requires greater skill of the managers. But on the other side, you have more people with specialized training, and people can work in the areas that are their genuine strengths.
Right. Exactly.
And the areas that they're not so good in, you've got somebody else who does have a strength in that area. Whereas if you've got 3 employees,
you can do it all.
That's right.
That's why it's so tough for really, really small companies. They have to really work at consciously, developing good management style and then coming up with their succession plans. Because larger companies, by definition, are already there sometimes.
Yeah. So that really brings us to our concluding point this afternoon, and that is that how does a small business fund? Fund the time to have the cash flow that the owner can do some reading, do some research, watch programs just like we're doing today, and then reflect upon it and work with the people like you and I to just have the time and have the money to be able to pay to be able to develop this work. Because if the work that the owner is doing in the business is ringing the cash register, then they don't have a lot of luxury. So it's almost, this is where the difficulty of life balance, that the owner has to keep that cash register ringing one way or another, either through his own efforts or employees' efforts, and while he begins to develop and grow his business, because it really comes down to development, the volume, the revenue, the profit, debt has to be reduced, cash reserves have to be created. So these are all accomplished, in many ways by setting goals and setting targets and then establishing simple budgeting.
Right.
And then evaluating how are we doing this month compared to how did we think we were going to do or hope to do. And then making adjustments in next month's and next quarter and setting new goals and dealing with the calamities and the surprises.
And dealing with the differences. The other you got to have the money, the cash flow today to spend the money, but really the benefit is over the life of the business. Right. That's the biggest thing, I think, And also, because I know entrepreneurs, they don't like to spend money on lawyers and accountants or consultants. That's just again, and that's a question I want to ask you, John. How do you get through to business owners and convince them that this is an investment in their future? It's not money down the drain.
Well, my personal experience is by talking to the owner about the things that are important to that particular owner, asking him about his children. How old are his children? How much time is he spending? Is he spending 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week? Does he, when was the last time he took a vacation? And can he afford to go away for 2 days? Many small business owners, they get Sunday off. Or they get maybe Sunday and Monday off.
I've seen that, yeah.
But, or they can go away from their business for a few hours. They come in, they make sure the business is running, and then they go to lunch, and then they come back at 4 o'clock and they have to close. But no, they can't be away. Or they don't feel comfortable being away. And by doing written plans, by doing job descriptions, by not only giving responsibility, but giving authority, instead of hiring people to be the assistant, you hire people to be the responsible party of a particular set of responsibilities. These are the duties, and you are responsible, and I'm going to pay you, and I'm going to reward you. If you perform above and beyond, I'm going to reward you. And either implicitly, I'm going to reward you, you did a great job, here's an extra $100 bonus. Great work, congratulations. Good word. Let's have a round of applause here for Marsden Smith for the kind of job that he did in the last 30 days in the sales department. Mars, that's a great job you did. You know, just some recognition to the other employees, and it's worth hundreds of dollars. The employee just closed. Oh my God, I've been recognized. I worked and they noticed. You know, so. Talking about employee turnover, you know, asking my business clients, you know, what's the longest time that an employee has worked for you? Oh, 4 years. Oh, okay. And have you ever had, what's the longest you've ever had an employee work for you? Oh, 7 years. You know, do you have any business associates who have employees who've worked for them for 10 years, 12 years? Those people are really committed. They really know that job inside and out, you know. So it's just talking about these kinds of things, and how old are you, and how much longer do you want to do this, and what are your other interests? What are your hobbies? Oh, you don't have any hobbies? No, because you're here at the business all the time. How many marriages have you been through?
Right.
Is this your first marriage, or is this your fourth marriage?
Right.
So, you know, illness. Are you healthy, or are you stressed?
Yeah.
You know, are you in overwhelm? Well, would you like it to be different than that? So, you know, some people are ready to listen, some people aren't. Yeah. And the ones that aren't ready to listen, you know, that's fine. You know, I'll talk to them in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And then all of a sudden something happens in their life. You know, a story just like you just said. They have a friend of theirs who gets notified that they have cancer, or that their wife has cancer, or, you know, some tragedy occurs, and all of a sudden, boom, the light goes on.
Right.
I better do something.
Because to me, it's just obvious. I mean, like I said, the life insurance comparison. I mean, he doesn't have life insurance, and so why not have succession insurance or a succession plan? Same thing.
It makes sense. It just makes sense. So, well, Marsden, I want to thank you very much for being my guest today at Business Conversations, and thank you for joining us today. I hope this program has been informative and useful to you. Thank you very much.